After the Allies landed in Europe on D-Day, they quickly liberated most of Belgium and northern France, but their advances into most of the Netherlands were halted. So they asked the railway workers in the Netherlands to go on strike to prevent German supplies from reaching the front. The Dutch obliged, but the Germans responded by placing an embargo on all food going to the Netherlands in September 1944. Then a particularly cold winter froze all the canals, stopping a lot of Allies aid coming to the region. So in the winter of 1944-1945, the urban populations in the Netherlands in particular had to endure a famine. Food rations fell to around 400 grams of bread and 1 kilogram of potatoes, and 18,000 people died as a result. Plus, there are many long-term medical consequences that the survivors had to endure, and one notable survivor of the famine was Audrey Hepburn. However, this was, of course, not the worst famine of the war. For instance, Germany, angry that they weren't self-sufficient, began to steal food from the Soviet Union and redistribute it amongst the Germans, and this, the hunger plan, caused the deaths of maybe hundreds of thousands, if not millions. In fact, the Nazis were so adamant that they had to be self-sufficient by the third year of the war, probably was one of the chief causes behind them invading Russia in 1941. And Göring believed that for the plan to be fully implemented, around 20 to 30 million Russians had to die, but of course they didn't fully invade the Soviet Union, and they didn't really have the manpower to blockade all food imports. However, just after the war, the Allies began to try and punish the Germans essentially through food, and only allowed the Germans to eat around 1,200 calories a day, about half of what was eaten in Britain and a third of what was eaten in America. Although later leaders would try and rebuild Germany, leaders like Roosevelt initially wanted to punish Germany and banned American soldiers in Germany from sharing food with the locals, and created a great deal of resentment in the nation by simply destroying food in the streets. They only destroyed the food, by the way, because they couldn't eat it and they didn't want the Germans to. And this policy could have created another rebellion in Germany or something like that, but it was soon cancelled because other European nations began to realize that they needed the Germans to trade with. In the Netherlands, for instance, they had to destroy a great deal of their vegetables simply because they were surplus and couldn't sell it to any other nation, and the same thing happened in Norway, Sweden and the likes. So the policy was cancelled after 2 years, and Germany was eventually allowed to rebuild.